Hello, hello. This is the my artifact episode number 3597. Today's date is September 18, 2025. It's been almost like wait. Okay, yeah. It's been almost like a morning at 7:48 a.m. I am little bit of tired. I'm not really sure am I tired or not. Actually, what exactly happened na ki yesterday I was actually watching a web series named uh, The Summer I Turned Pretty. It's a Amazon Prime web series. I was actually watching this web series till the midnight, till actually 3:30, actually 4 a.m. Yeah, literally 4 a.m. And then I sleep probably 4 a.m. and I wake up at 7 a.m. So I just sleep only 3 hours. So I am like a little bit dizzy now. Okay, I am not really sure how do I function today because good thing is that regarding about content I already uploaded, so it's not really worried. But the rest of the things I don't know. I have to be take a like a sleep at least like a 4 hour, at least 3 to 4 hour. It's really essential. Without I might not gonna function properly. Whatever. Let's just jump into this question. Okay. Yeah. All right. The question is, what if human evolve with the ability to breathe underwater? Okay. What exactly is this question? Well, this question is what if question. Okay. Yeah. What if question is a really good way to ask. I don't know. It's very interesting way to give the answer. All right. Question is, what if human evolved with the ability to breathe underwater? What would be happen? Breathe underwater. Yeah. As a human, we can't breathe underwater. The reason is that we are not built by kind of like a something as a species who could survive in the water. Yeah, we can swim, we can do stay for at least like a 10-20 minute, but be, but other than that we can't. Okay. Entire human structure would be changed if we kind of like a started, if we can't breathe in the underwater. Because let me tell you one thing, the entire human evolution is actually happen is because of that land. Okay. Yeah. Look at your leg. Why does you have a leg? Is because of you can walk, right? Yeah. Then why not fish doesn't really have an egg, or shark, or any kind of like a some marine animal? They didn't really have a leg. Why is that? Because leg is very useless over there. There is no leg. They like probably is this thing that if we start breathing underwater, probably is this thing that we might lose our leg and we might kind of like a something create something kind of like a something fish like structure at the bottom, probably. Okay. Yeah. uh, uh why do we have a leg? Yeah, let's just ask this question, why do we have a leg? Okay. Yeah, why do we have a leg? Yes, wait, let me understand this question first. Okay. Okay, so every species on the land does have a leg. Tiger, monkey, everyone has a leg, because obviously it's this thing that we can't fly, and if we wanted to move from one place to another place, we need a leg. There is a one specific kind of like a some species actually evolved. They can move one place to another place without leg, and that species called snake. Okay, yeah. But is this thing, why do we have a leg? Is because of that ki we can move, we can things. Okay, evolution is always work around survive. Okay, yeah. If we don't really have a leg, then probably we might not have survive. Okay, so leg is really essential. Alright, yeah. Now if we kind of like a something just like breathe in underwater or kind of like a something is this thing, then probably we don't really have a leg. We might have kind of like a things that ki, I'm not really sure what is that connected with fins. No, not fins, it's a turret. No, I don't know what is exactly that back part of fish. We will have that. Okay, yeah. um Lungs, yeah, lungs is a like a very essential factor for breathing. We kind of like suck out oxygen from our nose. Oxygen in the land, like basically oxygen that we breathe is in air format. Okay, yeah, which is very less dense. Very less dense means like that ki, like we can easily extract oxygen from air through lungs. Okay, and the process is quite an easy as compared to oxygen in water, because oxygen in water are like very less. Okay, yeah. So like what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that ki, our lungs are kind of like a extract oxygen from air, and that's why we could breathe. Okay, yeah. But we can't perform this task in underwater because of that ki, inside the water the oxygen is actually dissolved in very less quantity, and extracting oxygen from from water is also really difficult. Okay, so we need a very powerful lung, and also we need a very powerful a way to breathe, and we need a very powerful way to suck the kind of like a something water and things like that. So that's why most of the marine animal they have gills. Is it gills? Is it gills? I'm not really sure. They have kind of like a something that kind of like a something, a nose which is actually connected to this thing. It's a kind of like a flap. Okay, they always have opened this flap, and they actually suck the oxygen from the water. So we might have developed that thing around our neck, probably. Okay, yeah. But not that thing. Also blood circulation. Okay, yeah. Our blood circulation is like basically is this thing. Oxygen is actually kind of like a something transfer throughout the entire body through hemoglobin. Okay, yeah. So basically our hemoglobin is not really that much providing that much oxygen, because we actually get a lot of oxygen through air, and which kind of like a bit easy. But in marine life, if I would kind of like a breathe in underwater and things like that, so we might not have hemoglobin, or maybe we might have very different kind of like a hemoglobin. Maybe there is a word named mayoglobin. I just heard that kind of like a things, like a marine animal have that mayoglobin. What's a mayoglobin? A myoglobin is a kind of like a something, a kind of like a something hemoglobin, yes, but it's very different. It has a rich concentration of oxygen. Okay, yeah. So that oxygen would kind of like a something provide for every parts of our organ and things like that. Okay, yeah. So yes. Um, Another thing is that our body have a very thick skin. Okay, yeah, because if we are kind of like a something started breathing in underwater, then underwater is a very cold temperature. Okay, and basically it's this thing, we are hot blooded animal. Okay, our blood will circulate when there is a kind of like a little bit hot weather and things like that. Hot weather means like I'm not talking about like a 100 degrees Celsius or things like that. Hot weather means like that ki, like basically our body needs like a function properly at the kind of like a temperature of um, 25 to 35 degrees Celsius. Okay, so that's why we call hot blooded animal. Okay, yeah. But if we are kind of like a started living or in underwater things like that, underwater is a cold temperature. Okay, yeah, probably maybe minus 10 degrees Celsius to 5 degrees Celsius probably. Okay, yeah. And our body can't withstand that thing because obviously our body not meant to be that handle that kind of like a cold weather. We might get hyperthermia or things like that. Okay, yeah. But if you are start kind of like a something living there, then we might have very thick kind of like a skin. That thick skin will gonna provide little bit of something hot inside our. Okay, yeah. Like basically is this thing, the marine life skin is very thick. Okay, yeah. And they kind of like a something maintain the temperature of inside the body and outside the water. Okay, yeah. So we might have that same thing. We might have very thick skin so that we might maintain our temperature properly. Okay, yeah. um we might not have a hair. Okay, yeah, probably. Why? Hair is kind of like a something uh, like the hair and the color of your skin is actually depend on melanin. Okay, yeah. I'm not really sure about this information, but still, the melanin is kind of like a somebody decide the what kind of like a somebody the color that you look. Okay, if you expose with a too much amount of sun, then your body produce so much amount of melanin, so your skin became little bit of dark. Okay, yeah. So that's why people in Africa look little bit of dark. Okay, the people who get very less sunlight, that means their body needs to be kind of like a create little less melanin. So when they create less melanin, it has very less dark color of the skin. So that's why people who actually live in polar area or kind of like close to that, like England, Europe or things like that, they have a kind of like a fair skin. But if we are started living on underwater, then we might have very different approach that ki our body might not like basically in the underwater now the exposure of the sunlight is not directly. Okay, yeah. So the melanin will not gonna produce, or melanin will not be kind of like a something evolved inside our body. Okay, yeah. So our body color would be kind of like a something black and white. What's the black and white means? Like that ki if you are try to swim, then probably our back color would be black and our belly area would be white. Okay, yeah. Same thing happened with the marine animal. Okay, yes. um, Another thing is that ki leg, yeah, we might not have a leg. Okay, or maybe have a leg but still it's not, because leg is not actually function very much properly. Our area would be really big. Okay, yeah. Area means like that ki we became very fatty. Okay, like basically is this thing that ki right now you actually seen a kind of like a lean person, but that lean person might not gonna survive in underwater, because obviously that person should supposed to be kind of like a swim and things and that. So our size would be kind of like a look like a bigger fish or things like that. Okay, yeah, kind of like a some little bit of shark or things like that. Okay, our size would be really enormous. Okay, yeah. And we would have a lot of kind of like a fat. We would be like a really obese person, but it's not kind of like a bad thing, it's a good thing, because in the marine life, sometimes you get food and sometimes you didn't really get food, because most of the kind of like a something required for energy, it's depend on hunting. like basically in reality, in this real world, we are actually do focus on farming with basically because of the farming we actually create the food, and we actually kind of like something responsible for our energy and things like that. But in the marine life, agriculture would not be possible, and we mostly focus on hunting. Okay, yeah. And probably is this thing that ki if we are a part of the hunting community, means like that ki every species on the underwater is actually focused on hunting, so we might become kind of like a something hunter, or kind of like a something uh, a kind of like a food for somebody. Okay, yeah. So that's why we might not get food every single day. So our naturally body would be kind of like a somebody stored lot of fat inside our body, so that even if we don't really get food, we still get energy, like fish or shark. Okay, yeah. Shark has a kind of like a very dense body fat. That's why that's because of that they don't really get food all the time. Okay, yeah. So yes, this is the body structure, by the way. Regarding about also, yeah, eyes. uh, we have like a very different kind of like some the eyes. Okay, our eyes are meant to be evolved to look in the air, but our eyes are not meant to be look inside the water. Why? Because a very thin layer is actually between our eyes, and like we don't really have covering protection. Okay, yeah. But if we are kind of like started living in underwater, we might have kind of like a something very different protection of layer protection of our eyes and stuff like that. So probably yes. Hand, do we have hand? Yes, we have a hand, but it's not called as a kind of like a something hand. It's a kind of like a something a glider. Okay, yeah. Means like that ki there is a kind of like a something, the hand would be like a basically this thing. Have you seen in glider suit, like a air, like air gliding people, like skydiving people who kind of like assembly use have a gliding suit. That gliding suit has a kind of like a something have a fins beneath our kind of like a something beneath our hand, something like that. I don't know you actually imagine this thing or not, but this would we gonna have, we will gonna generate this thing for kind of like a simply reducing drag, and kind of like a simply swim faster and leaner and things like that. Okay, so we might have that. um, Nose, we might not have nose. Okay, yeah, because we actually kind of like develop the gills, so that we actually suck the oxygen from the water from that gills, and nose is useless. Okay, so we might not have a nose. Okay, yeah. Ears, we will have ears, but we will kind of like something ears will kind of like a trap inside our body. Okay, yeah. Like basically, have you seen your ears are meant to be kind of like a something kind of like a getting voices through surrounding temperature, surrounding weather and things surrounding everywhere. But if you are started breathing in underwater, then ears would be kind of like a something, it's very overwhelming, because the protection of water, basically water can easily pass through over there, so we might not have ears. We have an ears, but it's a kind of like it's a very small hole with a lot of protection and things like that. Our hearing capability would be really less. Okay, yeah. Because most of the marine animal, they don't really hear that much properly. The way they actually communicate through very different way of format, they actually communicate through skin, they actually communicate through basically what I'm trying to tell you is this thing na, ki, I'm not really sure the information that I'm trying to tell you, but what I know, still I'm not really sure, but the most of the marine animal, they actually communicate through not only by ears. Okay, they actually um, communicate through kind of like a vibration or things like that. Like basically it's this thing, they actually their entire skin is a kind of like act as a ear. Okay, yeah. And they actually kind of like a feel according to the vibration, according to the kind of like a whatever it is. Probably. Okay, yeah. So yes, a mouth. Do we have mouth? Not that much mouth. We might have mouth for eat, but probably is this thing that key for communication. We have a mouth? Yeah, probably, but we have very different kind of like assembly communication. Okay, we might gonna develop very different kind of like assembly communication because yeah, very different kind of like communication, not the way that you think it is. It's a very different kind of like assembly communication. I'm not really sure what kind of like communication that we develop, but it's very different. Okay, okay, this is just a human kind of like a structure would be changed. We would kind of like a look like little bit of fish probably. Okay, yeah. Another thing is that okay, how would be the society? Yeah, if we are started living breathing in underwater, what would be the society? um Society would be good. Okay, yeah. um Even if we kind of like a breathe underwater, still we can't explore the ocean that much, because ocean is very deep and very high pressure. Even if we can breathe underwater, we are not meant to be sustain high amount of pressure underwater, because if you went inside, the pressure is actually exerted so much as compared to land. So basically is this thing that key, like let me tell you one thing. Have you seen the person from Australia? Have you seen person from Africa? Have you seen person from America? These all those person doesn't really look different. Those are kind of like a look very similar. It will might gonna change regarding about the color of the person and things like that. But if we are kind of like a only humans will started breathing underwater, some people might gonna kind of like a started surviving kind of like a some very deep trenches underwater. And if they are kind of like started surviving in the deep trenches underwater, then they will kind of like a became very different kind of like animal, because different kind of like a human, because as I mentioned, it create pressure. Okay, when it create pressure, then we will create very different kind of like a ecology, or very different kind of like evolution we're gonna create, because our body need to be survive for higher pressure water. So we might have kind of like a some very very thick skin, or maybe very light skin, or maybe no skin at all probably. Okay, yeah. We might not become human. Okay, yeah, probably is this thing, because if we are kind of like a started imagine this thing, the our structure of the human is not meant to be kind of like a something for the ocean and things like that. We kind of like a look like a shark, or look like a kind of like a something fish who can survive for very dense water probably. Yeah, probably is this thing, like yeah. Now does human brain will evolve with this, like if we uh human brains does evolve. Basically the evolution of the brain evolved is actually highly rely on, like basically our brain, like it will gonna evolve. I'm not really sure that it will not, it will gonna evolve that much, but the problem is that na ki um like basically is this thing that ki we might gonna evolve. Yeah, like we might gonna evolve with our brain probably, but not the way that you think it is. Okay, let me tell you one thing that ki dolphin can use their brain much better way. Okay, like basically dolphins can have really bigger brain, bigger neurons, and they actually kind of like a something like their brain is actually kind of like a far much better than ours. But still they didn't really develop technology, they didn't really develop the things and stuff like that. Why? Because the marine life or the water does not support to develop the technology and things like that over there, because it's not possible. Okay, it's not possible. It just not, it just like the evolution and the invention and everything does really require a kind of like a somebody very lighter body and things. And our hand, yeah, hand is somewhat very essential part of our human evolution. Okay, the whatever the that we kind of like a simply develop, our hand is really really essential. inside the water, inside the ocean, we might have a hand, but we might not utilize the hand that much. Way is it? We might utilize hand for a kind of like ho 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 hello ho hello. Okay, we might have kind of like a something. Yeah, human brain will not evolve that much that you think it is. It's not okay because we will not gonna develop the wheel. Okay, wheel is very essential factor for development. We might not gonna develop the fire because obviously fire cannot survive in water. Obviously, yeah. And if I'm think about entire human evolution and kind of like a something, not only the evolution but the rise of the technology and the why do we use and the purpose and things like that, it the this kind of like a numerical does not fit into the marine life, is not fit into the water. Even if we have higher capacity of brain or things or that, still it's definitely not okay. Yeah, so basically if we kind of like a something survive in underwater, or if the entire human civilization is actually kind of like a something established inside the water, we might not have that thing, we might not develop the society, we might not, we became animal. Okay, indirectly somehow. Okay, because it just it's not, technology actually supports a lot of things. Okay, we might be really lucky to kind of like a somebody survive in land. We might be very lucky to we have a hand. Let me tell you one thing, hand is a very essential element for our growth, for human civilization growth. Yeah, like most of people might gonna say brain, but brain is not like every species has a brain, every species has a brain, but none of the species has a hand. We have a hand, and we could like basically look at around yourself, like most of the kind of like animal that you see, they have a two legs and two four legs. Okay, yeah, they don't really have a hand. The monkeys have a hand, but they don't really utilize that much because their brain is not really that much evolved. Like there is very less species actually exist on our planet which they have a hand. And probably you actually kind of like a think that our hand is that responsible for that evolution and growth. Yeah, dude, it's our hand that we could execute idea, we could kind of like simply stand on two leg, and we have a hand to kind of like do all the creative things. It's a miracle in the like no one species has that thing. Even if like most of people says that ki we actually kind of like a grown is because of the brain, it's nothing at all. Like a brain is actually like, it's not about kind of like a how much talent that you have, is about how much you execute your talent. Okay, yeah, your hand is kind of like a some way that you execute your talent. None of the species would have that liberty, and we have this thing. So basically if we are kind of like a somebody started breathing underwater, or maybe the entire human civilization will kind of like evolve underwater, we just might become the other species. That's it. Yeah, that's it. We just kind of like a somebody just fighting for food and things and that, and technology would not be developed. Nah, nothing really at all. Yes. But what this is my opinion would be, oh, I'm kind of like a very scientific opinion point of view. Yeah, but yeah, all right, this is I should supposed to be end here. Thank you.